Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Foundation of Deception. Vincent Calloway stood in his corner office on the 42nd floor, watching the city sprawl beneath him like a chessboard. At 52, he had built Calloway Enterprises from nothing, a construction empire that had reshaped half the metropolitan skyline. His hands, scarred from his early days swinging hammers and pouring concrete, now signed contracts worth millions. Those same hands had also built what he thought was a perfect marriage. 25 years ago, he'd met Claire Sutton at a charity gala. She was a psychology graduate student then, beautiful and sharp-minded, volunteering for a mental health nonprofit. Vincent was immediately captivated by her intelligence and the way she could read people like open books. She seemed to see straight through his rough exterior to the ambitious man beneath. Their courtship was a whirlwind. Vincent was climbing the ladder of success, working 18-hour days, but Claire never complained. She supported his dreams, even when it meant eating ramen for months while he invested every penny into his first major project. When his business finally took off, Vincent made sure Claire never wanted for anything again. Bradley Calloway, Vincent's younger brother, had always been the family disappointment. Where Vincent was disciplined and driven, Bradley was charming but reckless. He'd burned through 3 marriages, countless jobs, and most of his inheritance from their parents. Vincent had bailed him out more times than he could count, always hoping his brother would finally straighten out. 6 months ago, Vincent had made what he now realized was his biggest mistake. He'd given Bradley a job as project coordinator at Calloway Enterprises. Claire had actually suggested it during one of their dinner conversations. Maybe having real responsibility will change him, she'd said, her hand touching Vincent's arm gently. Family is everything, Vince. Give him another chance. Vincent should have trusted his instincts. Bradley had been a mediocre employee at best, but Claire had continued to advocate for him, always finding excuses for his poor performance. Vincent had attributed her sympathy to her psychology background. She always believed people could change. Now, as Vincent prepared to leave the office for their anniversary dinner, he felt a strange unease. For weeks, Claire had been different, distant, secretive, taking calls in other rooms. When he questioned her about it, she blamed stress from planning their anniversary celebration. "I want a night to be perfect," she'd said that morning, kissing his cheek before he left for work. "I have a surprise that will change everything." Vincent straightened his tie and grabbed his keys. In a few hours, they'd be at Moretti's, the same restaurant where he'd proposed 26 years ago. Claire had insisted on the same private dining room, the same menu they'd shared that magical night. As he walked to his car, Vincent's phone buzzed with a text from Bradley. "Looking forward to tonight, brother. Time for truth." Vincent frowned. Bradley wasn't supposed to be at dinner. It was just the two of them. He started to call his brother, then decided against it. Maybe Bradley was just referring to some family gathering later in the weekend. But something in that message felt ominous. Vincent drove through the city streets, passing construction sites bearing his company's logo. Each project represented years of sacrifice, strategic planning, and ruthless execution. He learned early that success required crushing weakness in himself and others. It was a lesson that had served him well in business. He had no idea he was about to learn how well it would serve him in life. Chapter 2. The Perfect Storm. Moretti's hadn't changed in 26 years. The same dim lighting, the same burgundy wallpaper, the same elderly maitre d' who remembered Vincent's proposal and always greeted them with knowing smiles. Tonight, Giuseppe led them to their private dining room with extra flourish. 25 years, the old man said in his thick accent. Molto bello. Very beautiful. Claire looked stunning in a black dress Vincent had never seen before. Her auburn hair was styled differently, more sophisticated, and she wore new jewelry that caught the candlelight. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her purse, and checking her phone repeatedly. "You look incredible," Vincent said, pulling out her chair. "New dress. I wanted tonight to be special." Claire's smile seemed forced. We've come so far, haven't we? They ordered the same meal from 26 years ago. Osso buco for him, salmon for her. Vincent tried to recreate the romance of their early days, sharing memories of their wedding, their struggles, their triumphs. But Claire seemed distracted, her responses mechanical. Remember when we lived in that tiny apartment above the deli? Vincent laughed. You said the smell of salami would be our fortune cookie. It would tell us when we'd made it in life. Things change, Claire said quietly. People change. Vincent studied his wife's face. As a businessman, he learned to read micro-expressions, to catch the tells that revealed when someone was lying or hiding something. Claire was definitely hiding something. Are you all right? You've seemed distant lately. Claire's hand went to her purse again. Actually, Vincent, I need to tell you something. I have a surprise. She pulled out a small wrapped box, placing it on the table between them. Vincent felt a moment of confusion. They'd never exchanged gifts on their anniversary. That had always been a tradition they'd save for birthdays and Christmas. Open it, Claire said, her voice strange, almost cold. Vincent unwrapped the box slowly. Inside, beneath tissue paper, were official legal documents. His eyes scanned the header. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Divorce papers. But that wasn't the worst part. Beneath the papers was a photograph. Claire and Bradley, clearly intimate, kissing outside what looked like a hotel. The timestamp showed it was taken just 3 days ago. Vincent's blood turned to ice. The restaurant's sounds faded to a distant hum. He looked up at Claire, who was no longer pretending to be nervous. Her expression had transformed into something he'd never seen before. Cold, calculating, almost predatory. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. 25 years was long enough to play the perfect wife. The private dining room door opened, and Bradley walked in, wearing a suit Vincent had bought him last Christmas. His brother's face wore the same cold expression as Claire's. Surprised, big brother? Bradley sat down uninvited. Took you long enough to figure it out. Vincent's mind raced. Questions flooded his thoughts, but one stood out above the rest. How long had this been going on? How long? He asked, his voice deadly quiet. Claire and Bradley exchanged a look, and Claire smiled, a cruel expression Vincent had never seen on her face before. Since the beginning, she said. Since before we were married. The words hit Vincent like a physical blow. 25 years. Their entire marriage had been a lie. You see, Vince, Bradley continued, Claire and I met first. At that charity gala. But you were the one with the money, the ambition. I was just a college dropout with no prospects. So we made a plan, Claire added. I'd marry you, help build your empire, and when the time was right, we'd take our share and disappear. Vincent's hands clenched into fists under the table. His mind, trained by decades of business warfare, began to shift from shock to something much more dangerous. You want a divorce, he said calmly. Fine, but you won't get a penny. Bradley laughed. Actually, brother, Claire's been very smart about this. Illinois is a no-fault state, and she's entitled to half of everything you've built, including the company. Our lawyers have been preparing for months, Claire added. We have documentation of our contributions to your success, evidence of assets, everything we need. Vincent stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. Both Claire and Bradley tensed, perhaps remembering that Vincent had learned to fight long before he'd learned to negotiate. But Vincent simply reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Antonio, it's Vincent. I need you at Moretti's. Private dining room. Now. He hung up and looked at his wife and brother with an expression that made both of them suddenly uncomfortable. You want to play games? Vincent said quietly. You have no idea who you're playing with. Chapter 3. The Call to War. Antonio Ricci arrived within the hour, his presence filling the private dining room like a storm cloud. Vincent's lawyer for the past 15 years, Antonio was known throughout the legal community as a man who didn't just win cases. He obliterated opponents. Tall and silver-haired, with the bearing of a general, he commanded respect from judges and fear from opposing counsel. Claire and Bradley had grown visibly uncomfortable during the wait. Vincent had said nothing, simply sitting in silence, his mind working through possibilities and contingencies. They'd clearly expected tears, begging, perhaps rage. Instead, they got calculated stillness. "Vincent," Antonio said, taking in the scene with sharp eyes. "I came as soon as I could. Sit down, old friend. My wife has something she'd like to share with you." Claire's confidence had begun to crack. She slid the divorce papers across the table to Antonio, who reviewed them with professional detachment. His eyebrows raised slightly as he read. "Interesting," Antonio murmured. "Very aggressive terms. And filed in Cook County, I see." He looked up at Claire. "Who's your attorney, Mrs. Calloway?" "Wilson, Park and Associates," Claire replied, trying to maintain her composure. Antonio smiled, an expression that had made many lawyers rethink their career choices. "Ah, yes. Marcus Wilson. Good lawyer. Not great, but good." He turned to Vincent. "This is recoverable, is it?" Vincent asked quietly. "Of course. Prenuptial agreement, business protections, asset structures we put in place years ago. Mrs. Calloway might get some settlement, but nothing like what she's hoping for." Claire's face flushed. "The prenup was signed under duress. I was young, naive." "You were 28 with a master's degree in psychology," Antonio interrupted. "That's not going to fly." Bradley leaned forward. "You don't understand. We have evidence." "Of what?" Antonio's voice was steel. "An affair? Illinois is no fault. Adultery doesn't affect division of assets unless there's economic waste, which you'd have to prove." Vincent watched his wife and brother's confidence crumble as Antonio dismantled their plan piece by piece. But this was just the beginning. They'd shown their hand, revealed their true nature. Now it was time to show them his. "Antonio," Vincent said calmly, "I want you to do something for me. First thing tomorrow morning, I want Bradley removed from the company. Security escort, the works. And I want a forensic accountant to examine every transaction he's had access to." "Vincent," Bradley said, sweat beading on his forehead, "you can't just—" "Can't what? Fire an employee for cause? This is my company, Bradley. I built it. I own it." Vincent's voice never rose above conversational level, which made it somehow more terrifying. "And I want to know exactly what you've been doing with company resources." Claire grabbed Bradley's hand. "We haven't stolen anything." "Haven't you?" Vincent stood up slowly. "Company credit cards, expense accounts, business trips. I'm going to examine every charge, every receipt, every hotel room." He paused, "including the hotel where this photo was taken." The implication was clear. If they'd used company resources for their affair, it constituted theft and breach of fiduciary duty. "This is harassment," Claire said, but her voice lacked conviction. Vincent pulled out his phone again and made another call. "Detective Morrison?" "Vincent Calloway. I need to file a report tomorrow morning. Suspected embezzlement and fraud." "Yes, I'll have documentation." He hung up and looked at the two people who had just destroyed his world. "You wanted to play hardball. Let's play." Antonio gathered the divorce papers. "I'll have a response filed by the end of the week. In the meantime, Vincent, you might want to consider securing your assets." "Already done," Vincent replied. "As of this morning, the house, the cars, the bank accounts, everything is locked down pending investigation." Claire stood up suddenly. "You can't do that. I live there too." "Read your prenup again, Claire. Infidelity voids your claim to marital residence." Vincent's smile was razor thin. "You and Bradley are welcome to find a hotel. I'm sure you know some good ones." As they prepared to leave, Vincent called out one last time. "Oh, and Claire, that psychology degree, you're going to need it. Because by the time I'm finished with you both, you're going to understand exactly what happens when you try to destroy Vincent Calloway." The door closed behind them, leaving Vincent alone with Antonio. "How bad is it really?" Vincent asked. "Legally, you'll be fine. She'll get something, but nowhere near half. The prenup is solid." Antonio paused. "But Vincent, if you're planning what I think you're planning, be careful. Don't let anger make you do something stupid." Vincent walked to the window, looking out at the city he'd helped build. "Antonio, you've known me for 15 years. Have you ever seen me do anything stupid?" "No, but I've never seen you betrayed like this either." Vincent turned back to his lawyer, and Antonio saw something in his eyes that made him step back. It wasn't anger. It was something much more dangerous. It was the cold, calculating fury of a man who had built an empire through ruthless precision and was now going to apply those same skills to destroying the people who had betrayed him. "Don't worry about me doing anything stupid," Vincent said quietly. "Worry about what happens when I do everything smart." Chapter 4. Gathering Intelligence. Vincent spent the next morning in his office, making calls and pulling threads. By noon, he had assembled a team that would have made a military intelligence unit envious. 3 private investigators, a forensic accountant, a computer security specialist, and a team of lawyers who specialized in high-conflict divorce cases. The first revelation came within hours. "Mr. Calloway," said Diana Frost, the lead private investigator, "we've traced the affair back at least 3 years based on hotel records and credit card receipts. But there's more." She slid a folder across his desk. Inside were photographs, bank statements, and communication records that painted a picture of betrayal far worse than Vincent had imagined. "Your brother has been skimming from project accounts for 2 years. Small amounts, never enough to trigger audits, but it adds up to about $80,000. Vincent's jaw tightened. "And Claire? She's been planning this divorce for at least 18 months. We found communications with her lawyer dating back that far. There are also records of her moving money into private accounts, jewelry purchases she's hidden, even a safety deposit box she opened without your knowledge." The computer specialist, a young woman named Riley Chun, looked up from her laptop. "Their electronic communications are extensive. Text messages, emails, even recorded phone calls. They've been incredibly detailed about their plans." "Show me." Riley turned her laptop screen toward Vincent. The messages between Claire and Bradley were damning. Not just proof of the affair, but evidence of calculated planning to maximize the divorce settlement and minimize Vincent's ability to fight back. One message from Claire to Bradley stood out. "V is so predictable. He thinks everyone plays by his rules. When we're done, he'll understand that being honorable is just being weak." Vincent read through months of messages, each one a knife twist. They mocked his devotion, laughed about his long work hours, even joked about how easy it was to manipulate him. But then Vincent found something that changed everything. "Riley, what's this message thread from 8 months ago?" Riley clicked on the folder. It looks like they were discussing someone else. "Look at the contact name, insurance policy." The messages revealed a third conspirator, Claire's sister, Denise, who worked as a paralegal at a major law firm. She had been feeding Claire insider information about high-profile divorces, helping her plan strategies to maximize her settlement. "This is conspiracy," Vincent said quietly. "They've been planning this for years, using inside legal information to build their case." Diana nodded. "It gets worse. We found evidence that Denise has been doing this with other clients. Your wife wasn't her first victim." Vincent stood up and walked to his window. The city spread out below him, and he could see several construction sites bearing his company's logo. Each one represented years of careful planning, strategic thinking, and precise execution. Now he would apply those same skills to war. "Diana, I want you to expand the investigation. I want to know everything about all 3 of them: financial records, personal relationships, vulnerabilities, fears, everything." "Mr. Calloway," Diana said carefully, "what exactly are you planning?" Vincent turned back to his team. "They think they know me. They think I'm just a hardworking businessman who plays by the rules. They're about to learn that I didn't build this empire by being nice." His phone rang. It was Antonio. "Vincent, we have a problem." Claire's attorney filed an emergency motion for temporary support and exclusive use of the marital residence. "The hearing is tomorrow morning." "Let them come," Vincent said. "By tomorrow morning, I'll have everything I need." After hanging up, Vincent made one more call to a number he hadn't used in 15 years, but had never forgotten. "Tommy? It's Vincent Calloway." "Yes, it's been a long time. I need a favor. The kind we used to do back in the neighborhood before I got respectable." The voice on the other end was gravelly, amused. "Vinny, what kind of trouble you got yourself into?" "The kind that requires someone to forget how to be a gentleman." "Well, shit. I thought you'd gone all corporate on us. What do you need?" Vincent looked at the files spread across his desk. evidence of years of betrayal and manipulation. I need to remind some people that successful doesn't mean soft. Consider done, just like old times. As Vincent hung up, he realized that for the first time in days, he was smiling. Claire and Bradley thought they were dealing with a wealthy businessman bound by social conventions and legal niceties. They were about to meet the man who had crawled out of a Chicago slum and built an empire by being smarter, tougher, and more ruthless than anyone who tried to stand in his way. The war was just beginning. Chapter 5. The First Strike. The emergency hearing convened at 9 a.m. sharp in Judge Patricia Henley's courtroom. Claire sat with her attorney, Marcus Wilson, looking confident and composed. She wore a conservative navy suit that projected the image of a wronged wife seeking justice. Vincent sat with Antonio, appearing calm and professional. But inside, he was a loaded weapon waiting to fire. Judge Henley reviewed the motion. Mrs. Calloway is seeking temporary spousal support of $15,000 per month and exclusive use of the marital residence during these proceedings. Mr. Wilson, present your case. Wilson stood up, painted a picture of Claire as a devoted wife who had sacrificed her career to support her husband's success. Your Honor, Mrs. Calloway has been married for 25 years. She gave up her career in psychology to support Mr. Calloway's business endeavors. She's entitled to maintain the standard of living she's accustomed to. And the exclusive use of the residence. Judge Henley asked, Mrs. Calloway fears for her safety, Your Honor. Mr. Calloway has a history of violent behavior and has made threats. Vincent's eyes narrowed. This was a lie, and a dangerous one. Mr. Ricci? Judge Henley looked to Antonio. Antonio stood with predatory grace. Your Honor, if I may. He activated a laptop, and a screen descended from the ceiling. The plaintiff has made serious allegations about my client's character. I'd like to address those first. The screen lit up with a series of photographs. Vincent at charity events, receiving community service awards, coaching Little League Baseball for underprivileged kids. The images painted a picture of a man deeply involved in community service and philanthropy. This is the man Mrs. Calloway claims she fears, Antonio said. A man who has donated millions to charity, who personally mentored over 50 at-risk youth, who has never been arrested, never been charged with any crime, never even had a parking ticket. Wilson objected. Character evidence isn't relevant to the motion at hand. Oh, but it is, Antonio continued smoothly. Because Mrs. Calloway's attorney just made character the central issue by claiming she fears for her safety. The screen changed to show a timeline. Now, let's discuss why Mrs. Calloway might really want exclusive use of the residence. The new images showed bank records, jewelry receipts, and storage unit rental agreements. Over the past 18 months, Mrs. Calloway has been systematically removing assets from the marital home. Jewelry, artwork, personal items, all moved to a private storage facility she rented under her maiden name. Claire's face went pale. Wilson started to stand, but Antonio wasn't finished. She's also been moving money, Your Honor. Small amounts, never enough to trigger automatic notifications, but totaling over $200,000 moved to accounts in her name only. The screen showed a flowchart of financial transactions. Judge Henley leaned forward, studying the documents. Furthermore, Antonio continued, Mrs. Calloway has not been honest about the timeline of these proceedings. She claims this is a recent decision, but we have evidence that she's been planning this divorce for over 18 months. Wilson finally found his voice. Your Honor, these allegations are supported by documentary evidence, Antonio interrupted, including communications between Mrs. Calloway and her attorney dating back to August of last year. Judge Henley looked at Wilson sharply. Counselor, did you begin representing Mrs. Calloway 18 months ago? Wilson's silence was damning. But the most relevant issue, Antonio said, is why Mrs. Calloway really wants exclusive use of the residence. The screen changed again, showing hotel receipts and credit card statements. Mrs. Calloway has been conducting an extramarital affair with Mr. Calloway's brother, Bradley Calloway, using marital assets to fund their relationship. The courtroom erupted. Claire grabbed Wilson's arm, whispering frantically, Vincent watched his wife's composure finally crack. "Your Honor," Antonio said over the noise, "Mrs. Calloway doesn't want the house for safety. She wants it because she and her lover have been using it for their affair, and she believes she can claim it as an asset in the divorce." Judge Henley banged her gavel. "Order." She looked at Wilson. "Counselor, do you have a response to these allegations?" Wilson stood slowly. Vincent could see the man realizing his client had lied to him about crucial facts. "Your Honor, we need time to review these documents and prepare a response." "I'll bet you do," Judge Henley said dryly. She turned to Antonio. "Mr. Ricci, what is your client seeking?" "Simply this, Your Honor, that the status quo be maintained pending a full investigation. Mr. Calloway will continue to live in the marital residence. Mrs. Calloway is welcome to return, but if she chooses not to, she can make other arrangements. As for support, we believe the evidence shows Mrs. Calloway has been preparing for this eventuality for months and has adequate resources." Judge Henley reviewed her notes. "Motion for exclusive use of residence is denied. Motion for temporary support is denied, pending a full accounting of assets and a proper investigation. Mrs. Calloway, I strongly suggest you and your attorney have a very honest conversation about the facts of this case." As the court adjourned, Claire turned to Vincent with fury in her eyes. "You bastard," she hissed. "You think you've won?" Vincent stood up slowly, buttoning his suit jacket. "Claire, this wasn't winning. This was just me being polite." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You have no idea what losing looks like yet." Outside the courthouse, Vincent's phone buzzed with a text from Diana Frost. "Package delivered. Phase 2 is ready." Vincent smiled as he watched Claire and Wilson hurry away, probably to figure out how much their case had just fallen apart. They thought the courtroom was the battlefield. They were about to learn that Vincent Calloway fought wars on multiple fronts. Chapter 6: The Web Titans. That evening, Claire arrived at the small apartment she'd rented under her maiden name to find Bradley pacing frantically. The space was a far cry from the luxury they'd both grown accustomed to, a cramped two-bedroom in a complex that had seen better decades. "Did you see the news?" Bradley asked without preamble. Claire dropped her purse and stared at him. "What news?" Bradley pointed to his laptop, where a local business publication's website was displayed. The headline read, "Calloway Enterprises employee arrested for embezzlement." Claire's blood went cold as she read the article. Bradley had been arrested that afternoon and charged with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. The article detailed how a routine internal audit had uncovered systematic theft of company funds over a 2-year period. "They arrested me at the office," Bradley said, his voice shaking. "In front of everyone. Security escort, handcuffs, the whole thing. How is that possible? We were careful. Vincent's smarter than we thought. He had forensic accountants go through every transaction I've ever made. Every dinner, every hotel room, every gift I bought you. If it was paid for with company money, they found it." Claire sank into a chair, the magnitude of their situation beginning to hit her. "What did your lawyer say?" "That's the worst part." "My lawyer? The one from Wilson's firm? He can't represent me anymore." "Conflict of interest, since the firm is representing you in the divorce. So get another lawyer." "With what money?" Bradley's voice rose. "They've frozen all my accounts pending investigation. Every penny I have access to is company money they're claiming I stole." Claire's phone rang. The caller ID showed her sister's number. "Denise?" "Thank God." "Claire, we need to talk." "Now." "Are you alone?" "I'm with Bradley." "Put me on speaker." Claire hit the speaker button, and Denise's voice filled the small apartment, tight with panic. "They know about me," Denise said without preamble. "Vincent's people. They know I've been feeding you information." "How is that possible?" "They have our communications, Claire. All of them. Text messages, emails, even recorded phone calls. They know about the other cases too. They found out I've been doing this with other clients." Bradley slumped against the wall. "Jesus Christ." "It gets worse," Denise continued. "They've reported me to the state bar. I'm probably going to be disbarred. And my firm? They fired me this afternoon." Claire felt the walls closing in. "Denise, you need to—" "I need to what? Run? Hide? They have everything, Claire." Every document I copied, every strategy one shared, every law I broke helping you. Her voice cracked. I'm probably going to prison. The line went dead. Claire and Bradley stared at each other in the sudden silence. Everything was falling apart faster than they could process. Bradley's phone buzzed with a text message. He looked at it and went pale. What is it? Claire asked. It's from Vincent. Bradley read aloud. Check your email. Bradley opened his laptop and accessed his personal email. The message from Vincent was simple. Click the link. Against his better judgment, Bradley clicked. A video began playing, security camera footage from various hotels, restaurants, and even the Callaway Enterprises office. It showed Bradley and Claire together in clearly intimate situations over the past 3 years. Dates, times, and locations were meticulously documented. But the worst part was the audio. Conversations they'd had, mocking Vincent, discussing their plans, laughing about how easy he was to manipulate. He's been recording everything, Claire whispered. For years. The video ended with a simple message. This is what justice looks like. You played a game with a man who built an empire. Did you really think you could win? Bradley's phone rang. Vincent's name appeared on the screen. Answer it, Claire said. Bradley put the phone on speaker. Vincent, hello, brother. Vincent's voice was calm, almost conversational. I thought you might want to know what happens next. Vincent, please. Bradley, you stole from my company. That's a felony. Multiple felonies. Actually, you're looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. I'll pay it back. With what money? You don't have any money. You never did. Everything you've had for the past 2 years has been stolen from me. Claire grabbed the phone. Vincent, we can work this out. Can we, Claire? You've been lying to me for 25 years. You've stolen from our marriage, betrayed our vows, and conspired with my brother to destroy everything I've built. His voice never changed tone, which made it somehow more terrifying. What exactly do you think we can work out? The divorce. The divorce is going to be very simple. You're going to get exactly what you're legally entitled to under our prenuptial agreement, which, thanks to your infidelity and the evidence of your systematic deception, is almost nothing. Bradley, try one more time. Vincent, we're family. No, Bradley. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't lie. Family doesn't spend years planning to destroy each other. There was a pause. You want to know what family does? Family protects itself from people like you. The call ended. Claire and Bradley sat in stunned silence as the reality of their situation sank in. They had tried to outmaneuver a man who had spent 30 years building an empire through strategic thinking and ruthless execution. And they were losing. Badly. Chapter 7. The Hammer Falls. 3 weeks later, Claire sat in Marcus Wilson's office, watching her lawyer review documents with increasingly grim expressions. The confident attorney who had assured her of a substantial settlement now looked like a man who'd been hit by a truck. Claire, I'm going to be very direct with you, Wilson said. Your case has collapsed entirely. What do you mean collapsed? Wilson spread documents across his desk. The evidence Vincent's team has compiled is devastating. Not only do they have proof of your affair, but they've documented systematic deception going back to the beginning of your marriage. He pointed to a thick folder. They found the original correspondence between you and Bradley from before your wedding. Love letters, Claire. You were planning to marry Vincent for his money while continuing your relationship with his brother. Claire's face went white. She'd forgotten about those letters, stored in an old box in her mother's attic. They also have bank records showing you've been moving money for over 2 years, hidden jewelry purchases, even a safe deposit box you opened in another state. Wilson's voice was flat. And then there's the conspiracy with your sister. Denise is facing criminal charges, Wilson continued. She's cooperating with prosecutors to avoid prison time. That means she's going to testify about everything, every strategy she gave you, every law she broke to help you. Claire slumped in her chair. What does this mean for the divorce? Under your prenuptial agreement, infidelity voids most of your claims to marital property. Combined with the evidence of deception and theft, you're looking at a settlement of maybe $50,000, enough to start over, but nowhere near the millions you were hoping for. That's impossible. I gave him 25 years of my life. You gave him 25 years of lies, Wilson interrupted. Claire, I've been practicing family law for 20 years. I've never seen a case this thoroughly documented. Vincent's team has evidence of everything, every lie, every deception, every moment of betrayal. Wilson's phone rang. He answered it briefly, then hung up with a grim expression. That was the prosecutor's office. They want to meet with you tomorrow. Why? Because you're being charged as an accessory in Bradley's embezzlement case. Using stolen company funds to conduct an affair makes you a co-conspirator. Claire felt the world spinning around her. This is insane. Vincent can't destroy my entire life over an affair. He's not destroying your life over an affair, Wilson said quietly. He's destroying your life over 25 years of systematic fraud, deception, and theft. The affair was just the trigger that made him look deeper. Meanwhile, across town, Bradley Calloway sat in a much smaller office with a public defender who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mr. Calloway, the evidence against you is overwhelming, the lawyer said. We're talking about documented theft of over $80,000, using company credit cards for personal expenses, falsifying expense reports. The list goes on. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Bradley said. Vincent always had everything. I just wanted my share. Your share wasn't yours to take. And the prosecutor isn't just looking at the money. They're treating this as part of a larger conspiracy involving your affair with your brother's wife. Bradley's head snapped up. What? They're arguing that the embezzlement was part of a larger scheme to defraud your brother, including your affair with his wife using stolen funds. That elevates this from simple theft to organized conspiracy. How much time am I looking at? If convicted on all counts, 7 to 12 years. Bradley felt his world collapse completely. 7 to 12 years in prison for what had started as just taking what he felt he deserved. There is one option, the lawyer continued. The prosecutor is willing to consider a plea deal if you cooperate fully. Provide testimony about the entire conspiracy, including your sister-in-law's involvement. You want me to testify against Claire? I want you to consider that she's probably going to testify against you to save herself. This isn't about loyalty anymore, Mr. Calloway. It's about survival. That evening, Vincent stood in his office, looking out at the city skyline. Diana Frost sat across from his desk, providing the day's updates. Both of them are cracking, Diana reported. Claire's lawyer is pushing for a quick settlement, and Bradley's public defender is talking plea deal. And Denise, fully cooperating. She'll testify about the entire conspiracy in exchange for probation instead of prison time. Vincent nodded. Everything was proceeding exactly as he'd planned. But the real satisfaction wasn't in their legal troubles. It was in watching them turn on each other. Any word from Claire? She's been trying to reach you all week. Calls, texts, even showed up at the office yesterday. What does she want? To talk. To work something out. She's desperate. Vincent smiled, a cold expression that would have made his enemies shiver. Let her be desperate a little longer. Desperation makes people show their true nature. His phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Vincent, please. We need to talk. I can explain everything. Vincent deleted the message without responding. Claire had spent 25 years deceiving him. Now she would learn what it felt like to be powerless, to have her entire world controlled by someone else's decisions. The game was almost over, and Vincent had won every round. Chapter 8, The Final Gambit. Claire's desperation had reached a breaking point. After 3 weeks of watching her life disintegrate, she made a decision that would prove to be her final mistake. She drove to Vincent's office building and waited in the parking garage until she saw his car arrive. As Vincent walked toward the elevator, Claire stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. Vincent, please. Just 5 minutes. Vincent stopped and studied his wife of 25 years. She looked haggard, her expensive clothes wrinkled, her makeup imperfect. For a moment, he almost felt pity. Almost. 5 minutes, he said. They rode the elevator to his office in silence. Once inside, Claire turned to him with tears in her eyes. Tears Vincent now knew were likely as calculated as everything else about her. Vincent, I know you hate me. I know you think I'm a monster. But we had good times, didn't we? 25 years can't all have been a lie. Vincent walked to his desk, but didn't sit down. Which part wasn't a lie, Claire? The wedding vows you made while planning to continue your affair with my brother? The nights you held me while texting him? The times you said you loved me while stealing my money? Not everything was planned. I did love you in my own way. Your own way. Vincent's voice was quietly dangerous. Your own way involved 25 years of systematic deception. Your own way involved conspiracy and theft. Your own way involved mocking me behind my back with my own brother. Claire tried a different approach. What about forgiveness? What about mercy? You used to believe in second chances. I gave Bradley second chances, third chances, fourth chances. I gave him a job, money, a life. And you both used my generosity to plot against me. We can start over. You and me. Without Bradley. I'll sign any agreement you want, take any settlement. We can rebuild. Vincent finally sat down behind his desk. Claire, do you know what the difference is between a wise man and a fool? Claire shook her head. A wise man learns from his mistakes. A fool makes the same mistake twice. Vincent's eyes were cold. I would have to be the greatest fool in history to trust you again. Claire's facade finally cracked completely. You bastard. You self-righteous son of a bitch. You think you're so perfect? You think you never made mistakes. I made one mistake, Vincent said quietly. I trusted you. I gave you the best years of my life. You gave me 25 years of lies. There's a difference. Claire's desperation turned to rage. You want to destroy me? Fine. But you'll never have what we had. You'll never trust anyone again. You'll die alone, you miserable. Get out. The quiet words cut through Claire's tirade like a blade. Vincent's voice hadn't risen, but there was something in it that made Claire step back. Vincent, get out of my office. Get out of my building. And if you ever try to contact me again outside of legal proceedings, I'll have you arrested for harassment. Claire stood frozen for a moment, then grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Vincent sat alone in his office for several minutes, then picked up his phone and called Diana Frost. She just left. Did you get it? Every word, Diana replied. The recording is crystal clear. Her threats, her admission that the good times were calculated, all of it. And Bradley, he just signed the plea agreement. Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. He'll testify against both Claire and Denise. Vincent nodded. The last pieces were falling into place. That evening, Claire returned to her apartment to find Bradley waiting for her, looking defeated. They offer me a deal, he said without preamble. What kind of deal? 7 years if I cooperate. 12 to 15 if I don't. Claire stared at him. Cooperate how? Testify. About everything. The affair, the planning, your sister's involvement, all of it. You can't. We're in this together. Are we? Bradley's voice was bitter. Because according to my lawyer, you've been trying to make your own deal for weeks. Claire's silence was damning. I'm taking the deal. Claire, 7 years is better than 15. You're going to testify against me? You were going to testify against me. Bradley exploded. Don't pretend this is about loyalty. We both know you'd throw me under the bus in a heartbeat if it saved you. They stared at each other, and in that moment, both realized that their conspiracy had been built on the same foundation as their affair. Mutual selfishness rather than any real connection. Vincent was right about one thing, Bradley said quietly. We never loved each other. We just hated him having what we wanted. The next morning, Vincent received a call from Antonio with the news he'd been expecting. Claire's attorney just called. She wants to accept the settlement offer. All of it. Every term. $50,000. No claim to the house or business. No spousal support. She's also agreed to plead guilty to conspiracy charges in exchange for probation. Vincent hung up and walked to his window. In 6 months, it would all be over. Claire would be out of his life forever. Bradley would be in prison, and Denise would be disbarred and facing her own legal consequences. But as Vincent looked out at the city he'd helped build, he realized the victory felt different than he'd expected. Not hollow. He had no regrets about destroying people who had tried to destroy him, but it was tinged with a sadness he hadn't anticipated. 25 years of his life had been a lie. That was the part that truly hurt. Not the betrayal itself, but the realization that he'd never really known the woman he'd slept beside for a quarter century. But Vincent Calloway had not built an empire by dwelling on disappointments. He'd built it by learning from mistakes and moving forward. And he had learned. He'd learned that trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. He'd learned that mercy was often mistaken for weakness. And he'd learned that sometimes the people closest to you were the ones most capable of destroying you. Those were lessons he would never forget. Chapter 9. Empire's End. 6 months later, Vincent stood in the same courtroom where this had all begun, watching Judge Henley finalize the divorce decree. Claire sat at the defendant's table, wearing a simple black dress that looked like it came from a discount store. The transformation was complete, from the elegant woman who had once commanded rooms to someone broken and defeated. The court hereby grants the dissolution of marriage between Vincent Calloway and Claire Sutton Calloway, Judge Henley announced. All terms of the settlement agreement are hereby ratified. It was over. 25 years reduced to a legal document and a $50,000 check. As the courtroom emptied, Claire approached Vincent one last time. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she waved him away. "Vincent," she said quietly. He turned to face her, noting how much she'd aged in the past 6 months. The stress of legal proceedings, financial ruin, and public humiliation had taken their toll. "I just wanted to say," she began, then stopped, seeming to realize there was nothing left to say. "Goodbye, Claire," Vincent said simply. She nodded and walked away. Vincent watched her leave, then turned to Antonio. That's it. She's out of your life, forever." Outside the courthouse, Diana Frost was waiting with a final report. "Bradley was sentenced this morning," she said. 7 years, just as the plea agreement specified. He'll be eligible for parole in 5. And Denise, disbarred and 2 years probation. She'll never practice law again. Vincent nodded. Justice had been served completely and thoroughly. What about Claire's plans? She's leaving Chicago. Apparently, she has a cousin in Oregon who offered her a job as a secretary. It's quite a come down from being the wife of Vincent Calloway. Vincent felt no satisfaction in that information. The woman who had left the courthouse wasn't the same person he'd married 25 years ago. Or maybe she was, and he'd simply never seen her clearly. "Diana, I want you to keep tabs on all 3 of them. Quarterly reports. I want to know if any of them ever try to contact me, write about me, or mention my name in any public forum. You think they'll try something? I think desperate people do desperate things. And I believe in being prepared." That evening, Vincent sat in his study at home, a house that felt both familiar and entirely different without Claire's presence. He'd had the locks changed, the security system upgraded, and her belongings removed. It was his space again, but it felt somehow hollow. His phone rang. The caller ID showed the name Tommy Benedetto, the man from his old neighborhood he'd called months ago. "Vinny? It's Tommy. Just wanted to check in, see how things went." "It's over, Tommy. All of it. Good. Any loose ends need tying up?" Vincent considered the question. There were always loose ends, people who might cause problems in the future, opportunities for revenge that hadn't been fully explored. But sometimes enough was enough. "No, they're finished. That's sufficient. You sure? Because if you ever need anything." "I'm sure. But Tommy, thank you for being ready. Anytime, Vinny. That's what family's for." Real family, Vincent thought as he hung up. Not the kind that betrays you, but the kind that stands ready to help when the world turns against you. Over the following months, Vincent threw himself back into his business with renewed focus. Calloway Enterprises expanded into new markets, acquired smaller competitors, and landed several major government contracts. Vincent's reputation in the business community, far from being damaged by the divorce scandal, seemed enhanced by his decisive handling of it. But the personal cost was real. Vincent found himself unable to trust easily, suspicious of motives, constantly analyzing people for signs of deception. He dated occasionally, but never seriously, always wondering what agenda lay behind every smile, every laugh, every expression of interest. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, Vincent received an unexpected visitor. Antonio called ahead to warn him. "Vincent, there's someone here to see you. Someone from your past." "Who?" "Father Miguel Rodriguez. He says he knew you growing up." Vincent smiled for the first time in weeks. Father Miguel had been the priest at his childhood parish, the man who'd taught him that strength without moral purpose was just brutality. Send him up. Father Miguel looked older, but still carried himself with a quiet dignity Vincent remembered. They embraced, and Vincent felt something he hadn't experienced in months, a sense of genuine connection with another human being. Vincent, my boy, I heard about your troubles. Not troubles, Father. Education. The old priest smiled. Ah, still the proud one. Some things don't change. They talked for hours about the old neighborhood, about Vincent's success, about the choices that led to this moment. I'm concerned about you, Vincent, Father Miguel said finally. Not about your business or your money. About your soul. My soul is fine, Father. Is it? Tell me, what have you gained from your revenge? Vincent considered the question carefully. Justice. Protection. The certainty that no one will try to destroy me again. And what have you lost? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Trust. The ability to believe in people. Maybe the ability to love. Those are expensive prices to pay for justice. They're necessary prices to pay for survival. Father Miguel leaned forward. Vincent, I baptized you. I watched you grow up in streets where trust could get you killed. But I also watched you become something more than your environment. Don't let three people's betrayal turn you back in what you fought to leave behind. And what was that? A man who trusts no one, loves nothing, and dies alone. After Father Miguel left, Vincent sat in his office thinking about those words. He'd achieved everything he'd set out to achieve. His enemies were defeated, his empire was secure, his reputation was intact. But as he looked out at the city lights, Vincent realized that Father Miguel was right about one thing. He was alone in a way he'd never been before. Not just physically alone, but emotionally isolated in a fortress of his own construction. The question was whether that fortress was protection or a prison. Vincent Calloway had destroyed everyone who betrayed him. He'd proven that crossing him carried a price too high for anyone to pay. He'd secured his empire and his future. But in the quiet of his empty house, surrounded by the success he'd fought so hard to protect, Vincent had to wonder if winning had been worth what it cost. The war was over. Vincent had won completely and utterly. But victory, he was learning, could be its own kind of defeat. Epilogue. 5 years later, Vincent Calloway stood at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Calloway Foundation's first homeless shelter. The foundation was his latest project, using his wealth to help people who had lost everything, the way he once might have if not for his own ruthless determination to succeed. In the crowd, he noticed a familiar face, Father Miguel, now grayer but still carrying himself with the same quiet strength. After the ceremony, they spoke again. You've changed, Father Miguel observed. Have I? The Vincent I knew 5 years ago would never have done something like this. Vincent considered that. It was true. In the years since the divorce, he'd gradually found his way back to something resembling humanity. Not the naive trust he'd once possessed, but a more measured form of connection with the world. Maybe I learned that there's more than one way to be strong, and more than one way to win. Vincent nodded. He'd never remarried, never again trusted someone completely with his heart, but he'd found purpose in using his resources to help others, satisfaction in building something that would outlast his own life. Claire, Bradley, and Denise had faded into memory, cautionary tales he occasionally thought about but no longer actively monitored. They'd paid their prices and disappeared into whatever lives awaited people who'd thrown away everything for petty revenge. Vincent Calloway had won the war completely, but more importantly, he'd survived it with his humanity intact. That perhaps was the greatest victory. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.